Level 1, the Rising Star. You're the hotshot portfolio manager at a mid-sized hedge fund in Midtown Manhattan, and everything is clicking into place. You've been crushing it for 18 straight months with concentrated tech bets on names like Viacom CBS, and a few Chinese ADRs that nobody else on the desk has the nerve to touch. Small, unauthorized positions you slipped past the risk team start paying off big because the market is in full bull mode and your P&L is flashing green every single day. The head of risk gives you more leeway than anyone else because the numbers don't lie and your returns are carrying the entire fund's performance. Colleagues start calling you the next big thing in the elevator, and the CIO pulls you into his office to talk about bigger capital allocations. You feel invincible for the first time in your career. You start bending the rules just a little, taking slightly larger positions than your mandate allows, telling yourself it's all in the service of outsized gains. No one questions it because the money is flowing and the bonus pool is looking massive this year. You upgrade the family apartment in Tribeca and promise your wife that next summer you'll finally take that long vacation you've been talking about for years. The Rising Star phase feels like pure momentum, and you convince yourself that the limits are for lesser traders who don't see the patterns you see on the Bloomberg terminal every morning. Level 2, the hidden loss. The market reverses hard on unexpected news out of Washington that tanks your biggest concentration overnight. The first real loss appears on the books at close, and it's bigger than anything you've ever seen in your personal book. Instead of reporting it like the compliance manual demands you quietly move the position into an unused error account you label 8-8, the same way Nick Leeson once did at Barings. You create fake offsetting hedges in the system using phantom trades that make the daily risk reports look clean and balanced. You tell yourself it's only temporary, and you'll trade your way out by the end of the week. Nights turn into marathons at the desk where you stay until 2 in the morning, manually adjusting entries in the back-end system while your wife texts asking why you're never home before the kids are asleep. The guilt starts creeping in during those quiet hours, but you push it down with the belief that one good swing will erase the entire whole. The hidden loss sits there, growing slowly at first, but you keep the facade perfect during daytime meetings, and the fund's overall performance still looks strong enough that nobody digs deeper. You start drinking more coffee just to stay sharp, and the paranoia about someone noticing a mismatched trade log begins keeping you up even after you finally crawl into bed. Level 3, the doubling down. The loss keeps growing as volatility spikes and your concentrated bets move further against you. You start ignoring the first VAR breaches that flash red on the risk dashboard every morning, and you ramp up leverage aggressively by entering into total return swaps through 3 different prime brokers so the true exposure stays hidden from the fund's internal systems. You convince yourself you're smarter than the market itself, that this is just a temporary dislocation and the recovery is coming any day now. The stress begins eating at you physically with constant overeating at your desk and skipped family dinners that turn into fights with your wife, who can sense something is deeply wrong. You check Bloomberg obsessively at 3 in the morning from the living room couch, refreshing the screens every few minutes while the rest of the apartment sleeps. The doubling down phase feels like a high-stakes poker game where you're all in on the next hand, and the rational part of your brain knows the odds are turning against you, but the adrenaline and the sunk cost fallacy keep pushing you deeper. Colleagues notice you're more irritable in morning huddles, but they chalk it up to the normal pressure of a big book, and you keep the lies flowing because admitting the size of the hole now would end everything you've built. Level 4, the margin calls begin. The prime brokers modeled after the Credit Suisse playbook start firing off margin calls demanding extra collateral as your hidden swap exposures breach their internal limits. You secretly liquidate smaller unrelated positions across the fund to meet the first rounds of demands while lying directly to the risk committee in weekly meetings about the true concentration levels. Colleagues begin noticing your jittery behavior during calls and the way your hands shake slightly when you type on the keyboard. Your kids start asking at dinner why Dad is always yelling at the computer screen in the home office, and you snap at them before immediately regretting it. The fund's overall performance begins cracking noticeably for the first time, and investors start asking questions in the monthly letters. The margin calls feel like a tightening noose around your neck because each new demand forces you to sell more just to stay afloat, and the market keeps moving against you. You liquidate retirement accounts quietly to cover personal shortfalls, and the lies to your wife about the family finances grow more elaborate every week. The isolation becomes total as you realize you're now operating completely outside the guardrails and there's no easy way back. Level 5, the forced liquidation. A sudden volatility spike on a single stock catalyst triggers the full margin call cascade across every prime broker at once. The banks start selling your positions automatically in a fire sale that floods the market, and you watch nearly $2 billion evaporate in a matter of hours right there on your Bloomberg screens as the prices move violently against you. The fund's NAV collapses in real time, with redemptions pouring in from panicked investors, and emergency meetings are called on the trading floor while phones ring off the hook. Brokers are screaming for more collateral you don't have, and the head trader is physically pulling you aside, asking what the hell is going on with your book. Total chaos erupts as compliance teams scramble to piece together the hidden swaps, and the CIO demands immediate explanations. You sit frozen at your terminal, realizing the cascade is unstoppable and every sell order is compounding the damage. The forced liquidation phase is pure panic, where the market turns into a meat grinder and your entire career flashes before your eyes in the flickering numbers on the screen. By the end of the day, the damage is irreversible, and the fund that once trusted you with hundreds of millions is bleeding out in public view. Level 6, the collapse. The fund is officially blown up by the next morning, and the CIO calls you in at 6 a.m. for the termination meeting in a conference room that feels like a funeral. Security escorts you out of the building with a cardboard box of your personal items while the entire desk watches in stunned silence. Media headlines explode across every terminal screaming, "Hedge fund implodes after trader's $1.8 billion bet," and your name is suddenly attached to one of the worst blowups since Archegos. Your entire career and reputation are gone in a single trading day, with the industry blacklist already forming in every prime broker's system. The collapse hits like a physical blow as you stand on the sidewalk outside the office, realizing the life you spent 15 years building has been erased overnight. Investors are filing lawsuits and regulators are already circling, and the only thing left is the long walk home to face your family with the truth you've been hiding for months. SEC and FBI agents raid your home and office the following week, seizing every computer and file while neighbors watch from across the street. Co-workers who once covered for you now flip under pressure and provide detailed evidence of the concealed error accounts and fake hedges. The federal indictment comes down for securities fraud and wire fraud, carrying decades of potential prison time. Plea negotiations drag on for months until you accept the deal that keeps you out of maximum security. At sentencing, the judge cites the sophisticated concealment and the massive investor losses before sending you to a minimum security federal camp. 10 years later, you walk out the gate with $500 in gate money, a permanent FINRA bar that ends any hope of returning to finance, and supervised release conditions that track your every move. Your ex-wife has remarried, and your kids barely recognize the broken man who emerges. You end up driving for Uber in a different state while scrolling old Bloomberg terminals on public library computers, a ghost of the rising star trader you once were forever marked by the single decision that destroyed everything. The hedge fund world keeps promoting the next genius trader who swears they're different, who promises the risk controls will hold this time, and the leverage is perfectly calibrated. Your life is permanently erased, your name reduced to a cautionary footnote in industry risk reports, but the blow-up cycle continues without you already scanning the next hotshot PM who's about to hide that first loss in an error account somewhere on Wall Street.